Absolute Ben 10 has finally arrived. It's been heavily anticipated for the past couple of weeks. Illustrated by Duck's art and written by Danboy Wonder, this takes place in an alternate reality where Ben has lost his grandfather, Max, and at the age of 15 years old is when he finds the Omnitrix for the first time. This is a huge play on the Absolute universe that has been running the DC fandom for the past year, with Absolute Batman being my personal favorite and the biggest standout of the bunch. This version of Ben 10 capitalizes on the format where it has this major character lose something incredibly valuable and warping the story around that, becoming the same hero that we know Ben to be at his core, but still completely different and skewed. Chapter 0 starts out by showing us a very depressed Ben Tennyson, having gone through the loss of his grandfather Max recently. Grandpa Max is always drawn in such a unique way by Duck's art, who is also the creator of Ben 10 Delta. However, in this version, he has a blue Hawaiian shirt and has much slimmer features, rather than being our chunky Grandpa Max that we're used to from the Prime timeline. A thing to note here is how each variant of Grandpa Max from the AUs have different kinds of Hawaiian shirts, which is very interesting. Ben then heads out for school in the most depressed and sulky mood possible. His design is completely different from what we've seen in previous AUs, where he sports much longer hair and a black and white hoodie, and a significantly more mature aesthetic. He is about the same age as he was in Alien Force. A completely different parallel though is that he is not the experienced combat prodigy that we know from the Prime timeline. So this has already set up the precedent of the story to be very interesting. I like setting the age at 15 here as well, as it gives them a lot more free room to explore the mature themes, beyond just life and death, but in relationship dynamics as well. A critical one here that we see so far is between him and his parents. They are so supportive and positive, and even though they have all experienced the loss of Grandpa Max as well, it's really good to see that their dynamic really juxtaposes how Ben feels about the situation. Plus, oh my god, Sandra Tennyson!
My whole life has changed since you came in. I will back then, you were my special.
Anyways, Ben sulks his way into school, where we meet Cash and JT, which in this universe are his friends. Well, let's say acquaintances for now. They sport the varsity team jacket for Bellwood, and it also looks a lot like the jacket we see in Alien Force. They both approach Ben asking him why he dropped out of baseball. Pause here. So many interesting changes happening in this universe, and I think this one is probably one of the greatest attention to details that we've seen so far. As in the classic series, we can see where Ben had a great affinity for playing baseball, so having not gotten the Omnitrix, he would have probably stuck with this focus and the sport instead. A prime example that shows his baseball talent is from the episode Unnaturals. However, in the episode Ben 10 Returns and War of Worlds Part 1, we see Ben playing soccer. I call it football where I come from, but it still shows great attention to detail on this shift in their timeline. Anyways, they are trying to encourage him to join the baseball team, or rejoin the baseball team rather. However, Ben's depressive mood scares them away. Gwen subsequently approaches him with positive information and invites him to join them on the camping trip with their family. Firstly, I love her new design. It's a very cool merger between her Alien Force design from season 1 and 2, combining the ponytail and the collared shirt along with the vest. It's a very interesting way of doing it. Both of them express their different emotions and feelings toward Grandpa Max passing. Gwen embodying the feeling of wanting to remember him and move on, while Ben is stuck in the past and not being willing to let go. However, he does agree to go on the camping trip, which should be our major inciting incident in the next part of this chapter. I also wanted to note a few more Easter eggs in this classroom. We get a slight view of Julie in the background of one of the shots, which is very cool. I hope they handle her better than Omniverse did. And also, look at the chalkboard, guys! It says GMFB. That's 100% me, dude. I'm so happy for the fact that I finally got a mini cameo in one of these fan AUs. Hopefully somebody else who does an AU that spawns alien girls will follow suit. But Ben ends up going back home, which I think is another amazing parallel between what happened in the first episode of Alien Force, where he pulls a special box and he's able to find something very precious within it. Grandpa Max left for him a moonstone bracelet, a good gift that serves to be a wonderful reminder of his past. In Alien Force's first episode, he does pull a box, but instead of finding a moonstone bracelet, he finds the Omnitrix, so completely different thing. However, Ben starts crying in this version. of course because of his emotional bond with Grandpa Max. I think this chapter 0 explores the grief and loss that Ben is going through so well, and it's really rich and powerful. I think that this kind of trauma will definitely go along with Ben for the rest of the series, and we'll get to see how he evolves and grows out of being salty and depressed into the hero that we know he can be. Now outside of the chapter, there is a major thing that I would love to talk about, and that's the Omnitrix and its aliens. You see, this new watch comes with a brand new design, which is a combination of a few different watches. It has a gauntlet shape and features just like the Ultimatrix, while also having a circular holographic display similarly to the Omniverse Omnitrix, which is quite interesting. This seems to be a watch that does have an augmentation or enhancement feature, since every single Omnitrix that has followed through with the gauntlet shape has always had additional features. Think back to the Ultimatrix. After being first introduced in the final battle, that had the ultimate function that would enhance the user for combat, and we can also think of the gauntlet-sized Omnitrix from Ben 10,000 that premiered in the classic series, that had nano-robots or nano-machine enhancements that were geared towards aliens and their power. So I'm expecting some sort of enhancement to come from this watch as we get to see it be unveiled. The first alien that we have seen so far though in design is Feedback, and we can see where the enhancement theory is coming to fruition, as Feedback is a lot more muscularly built than he is in the classic series, where he's a lot more slender and possibly more flexible. He seems to be more like a high-powered version of the Conductoid, but that just feels like such a great parallel to Absolute Batman. But besides my thoughts of the watch having its own new enhancement features, there are a lot of aliens there that we should be getting in this comic that have been hinted at through this variant cover. Let's see if we can possibly deduce them and get a few before they are actually revealed. First few besides the obvious Feedback I can notice so far are Ripjaws, Ghost Freak, Diamond Head, and Spider Monkey. So far that sounds like a pretty sick catalog for the roster. A thing that I am also looking forward to see is the development and changes with the new character dynamics. With the fact that Cash and JT have already shown involvement in the series this early, I mean Cash did get access to a Tekadon armor in the episode The Gauntlet in Alien Force. Plus, I also like to see that Ben's parents are really involved in his life, beyond just being damsels in distress or possibly comedic relief like what we've seen in the episode Grounded and in the movie Ben 10 Race Against Time. I would like to see how this story's direction would end up evolving. The fact that it's influenced by the Absolute DC universe, I would love to know whether it leans more towards the Absolute Batman side of things or literally anywhere else. Danboy Wonder, the writer of this comic, did however tell us some of his reading inspirations, and he does let us know that it's a lot more varied than just being Batman.
That I am inspired by Absolute Batman, you know. I'm also taking inspiration from other avenues like the Absolute Flash comic, which compared to Absolute Batman is like sunshine and rainbows, bro.
So I do expect it to follow through on multiple different aspects of these Absolute series, and especially counting that the Flash is an inspiration, I don't expect it to have the stakes be nearly as high as Absolute Batman or nearly as hopeless. However, I do expect for it to heavily draw from multiple different angles of Ben 10, but we'll only stand to learn more from the next chapter that comes out next week. However, if you're starving for more fun AU art from Dux, you can check out the Cellutrix or Ben 10 Delta. I'm sure you'd love either of these.